So a couple of days ago, the CEO of Goya Foods came out and said some nice things about Trump. Says he says he thinks Trump's doing a good job or whatever. And in response to this, AOC went on Twitter and decided to make a big deal out of this and start basically a boycott of Goya. And I think this is incredibly silly. I think this shows a lack of priorities. And I don't see what the end goal of this could possibly be. Because, and let me be clear, anybody has the right to boycott Goya or any corporation if they're doing things that you disagree with or they have positions that that go against your principles or whatever. So I'm not criticizing that aspect of it. But I'm just genuinely confused. What on earth do people possibly think is going to come out of this? You have, okay, I don't know however many people are going to actually boycott Goya. But say they did. Say it's a sizable amount of people. They take a hit and it's noticeable the dip in profits as a result of some kind of boycott. And say they come out and denounce Trump. Oh my God, he's a monster. He's terrible. He's this and he's that and that. Okay, so now you have a CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation saying they dislike Donald Trump. What kind of win is that? That does nothing to benefit the millions of people who are desperately suffering right now in the midst of a pandemic and economic crisis. This is the height of virtue signaling and political theater. This boycott is not going to get people Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. This boycott is not going to get a $2,000 monthly recurring UBI payment to everybody in this country during this economic depression and economic crisis. This boycott is not going to get protective equipment for essential workers who are on the front lines in the midst of this deadly pandemic. It's not going to get them hazard pay. This boycott is not going to get a rent freeze. So I don't understand this. And you can say, hey man, it's not like this is the only thing she's doing, and it's not like she's put all her focus onto this boycott. Okay, technically, yeah, that's true. But how much energy is she putting into this? And how much energy or focus could she be using towards actually getting real results, policy results for people in this country who desperately need it? And that's my point. It's a complete lack of priorities. For her, it's an affront to her nature that a CEO would come out and say something nice about Trump. So now she has to use her grassroots army to make a statement and say, you know what, guys, we don't agree with this. Anybody who likes Trump, guess what? You're not going to get our business. Okay, what is it? Like, it's not going to remove him from being president. It's not going to do, like I said, it's not going to get any of the policies we need to get through this crisis. So what is the point? And on this show, I have gone scorched earth and I've been railing against the elected progressives like Bernie and AOC because they have done nothing. They have done nothing and they've gotten no results. They've gotten no policy concessions during this entire crisis. And when I call these elected progressives like AOC, Bernie, Ilhan, Rashida Tlaib, when I call them sellouts, people get offended and they say, they're doing the best they can. What do you expect them to do? They don't completely control Congress. And my response to that has always been, Bernie and AOC are both the most popular politicians in the entire country. AOC, freshman congresswoman, has more social media followers than any other person in Congress. If they wanted to, if they made any effort to organize and to apply grassroots pressure to the Democrats and the Republicans in order to force their hand and make them pass the policy agenda of the left, it would make a difference. But they choose not to do that. And this bullshit Goya boycott, it shows that they know that they could always use their political following. They know that's always an option in their back pocket to get what they want or to make a point. They know that, which is why she did this whole stunt and political theater to apply grassroots pressure from her followers to Goya because he did something that she doesn't like. So now, why does she and Bernie refuse to apply that same pressure when it's the corporate Democrats doing corporatist, corrupt policies that harms the working class that they claim to be representing? Where are all the boycotts of Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leadership for blocking UBI and for blocking Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, or blocking rent freezes and mortgage freezes? Where's the boycott and the organizing against that? Nowhere to be found. And it's especially telling this weekend that this is when she decided to do this nonsense boycott of Goya, because at the same time, this very weekend, the grassroots was trying to organize against Nancy Pelosi. Movement for a People's Party. They had this whole thing. They have a list of demands called the People's Stimulus, rent freeze, UBI, Medicare for all. It's basically a debt cancellation. It's basically a bailout for the people that Congress should have done back in March when they decided to give a multi-trillion-dollar bailout to corporations. People went to Nancy Pelosi's office. They marched to Nancy Pelosi's office, protested. Shahid Buttar was there, her primary challenger, and they demanded Nancy Pelosi come out and support a people's stimulus or give a reason as to why she's against it. And they did it at Nancy Pelosi's office, or house. They did it at Chuck Schumer's. They went and did it at Mitch McConnell's. All the House and Senate leadership and some, they went and applied pressure to our elected representatives to get them to support a people's bailout, to support the policies that AOC has been claiming that she wants to see passed. Where was AOC when all of this was happening? She was pushing that bullshit Goya boycott and had not a word to say. She could have amplified the message. She could have said, hey guys, you know what? I think this is a great idea. I think we should be applying public pressure to the Democratic leadership and Nancy Pelosi specifically because they're the ones blocking our policy priorities. AOC didn't have a goddamn word to say about it. She completely ignored it. She could have amplified her message. She could have had thousands and thousands more people come out and make an even bigger statement. Make this a more successful organizing and pressure campaign for the policies that she claims to support. But she didn't do that. She chose on purpose to not do that. And don't tell me she didn't know about it. Don't tell me she didn't know that an unprecedented grassroots organizing feat to go to the House of all leadership and some to have their constituents demand real policy concessions. Don't tell me AOC didn't hear about this. Don't tell me she didn't know about this. But she chose not to. And this is why I call her a sellout. This is why I call her and Bernie a sellout. Because they talk all this talk about being revolutionaries and taking on the political establishment. And let me tell you why this is especially frustrating. Because right now, at the end of this month, we are looking at the wheels falling off this thing. Societal collapse. They have no plan on expanding the unemployment insurance, which expires at the end of this month. Up to this point, 50 million people in this country have filed for unemployment. That number is impossible to wrap your head around. Those metrics have never ever been seen before in U.S. history, or really anywhere around the world, if I'm being honest. It's short of a war-torn country. But that's what we're looking at in just a couple of weeks. We still have no UBI. So those 50 million people who will no longer get the unemployment insurance, they have absolutely no income coming in. So they have no way to buy food or essentials for their family. They have no way to pay for rent. And by the way, the eviction moratorium that had been passed across the country, they're beginning to expire as we speak. The eviction process has begun for millions of people, and it's expected 25 million people are at risk of eviction by the end of September. We are at crisis levels. The country is falling apart at the seams. And right now, Congress is about to have to come back and pass some form of stimulus bill. And we'll get even less than what we got the first time. That isn't even up for debate at this point. This is the contours of the debate right now, of what's going on in Washington. Nobody is even entertaining the idea of UBI, rent freeze, Medicare for all, or any of these essential, non-negotiable policies at this point. That's not even part of any of the discussion. And what's going to happen is AOC and Bernie and all these other shitty, useless progressives, they're going to squander this time that we have before the negotiations start, before the policy gets written. They're going to squander this time. They're going to sit on their hands, and they're not going to apply any pressure to anyone to include their priorities into any legislation they pass. They're not going to do that. And then when the time comes to vote for another corporate bailout that hoses everybody else in this country, AOC and Bernie and the rest of them, they're going to come out and they'll be like, our hands are tied. This is what they just presented us this, and they said it was take it or leave it. So we had no choice. We had to go along with another corporate bailout. And that hoses regular people and leaves them out to dry. They're going to say they had no choice but to go along with this. Mark my words, they're going to say it. But I want you to know, when it was time to be organizing to pressure Nancy Pelosi, when the grassroots was already organizing to pressure Nancy Pelosi, AOC had a choice between supporting them, amplifying their message, saying these people are right to pressure the leadership of the Democratic Party to get these policies. She had a choice between that and this nonsense political theater fucking boycott of Goya because the CEO said something positive about Trump. She had a choice between using her grassroots army and her following for a political stunt that doesn't even have a single policy goal to attain, or getting involved in a real fight to get the policies that she claims she wants passed. And she chose to go with the stunt. She chose to go with the political theater. That's who these people are. They're fucking sellouts, and they are opportunists, and they made it crystal clear that they will never, ever fight, actually put up a fight for Medicare for all, UBI, rent freeze, or any of that stuff. They'll talk about it. They'll tweet about it. They'll say how great those policies are, but they won't spend an ounce of political capital to make sure those things happen. So that's the state of affairs. That's where we are right now. And it's a goddamn sad sight.